There are a bunch of ways that losing poker players can stick out like a sore thumb, and if you know what to look for, it's very, very easy to spot them. So today I want to share 5 signs with you to spot a losing poker player, and if you're currently a losing player, see if you're making any of these mistakes too. Good morning, how we doing today? My name is James Sweeney, aka Split Suit, and most players honestly are losing at the end of the day. If you look at all possible poker players, a large chunk of them are going to be losing, well more than half. Small subsection are going to break even, and an even smaller subsection is going to be making actual profit in this game. So if you're currently a losing player, this isn't to insult you, in fact this is actually to help you get rid of some of these things that make you a fishy player right this moment. Or if you're talking with poker players, be it in YouTube comments and Discord, in a live cash game, whatever, you can kind of start to say, this person might be a little bit fishy. Sign number 1, you use words like always and never a lot. Losing poker players tend to use words like always and never a tremendous amount when talking about poker hands, or talking about what they do in a situation, or talking about someone else's actions. They tend to say they'd always give action in this situation, or they would never barrel in that situation, or they would always make that call, or they would never make that bluff. Really? Never? Always? Now I understand we live in a time with very, very hyperbolic language, but really, you can't think of a single scenario, a single variable set that would be true for you to break away from this always or never thing? Really? You couldn't come up with a situation where you could possibly fold kings pre-flop? You can't think of a single situation where you would bluff the river with 100% of your bluffs? You can't think of any of these things? This kind of short-sighted thinking is usually typical of bad poker players. So if you hear people using words like this a lot, especially in situations where it makes no damn sense, very, very results-oriented, and using always and never a tremendous amount, pretty much a good sign that you're dealing with someone who's not a winning poker player. Sign number 2, losing poker players cannot look at a hand that they played objectively. When a losing poker player talks about a hand that they played, be it in a Discord or in a YouTube comment, or just talking about, say, in a live cash game, talking about that hand right after it happens, they really fail to talk about that hand objectively. Everything is very, very subjective. They're completely unable to zoom out and look at the hand super, super objectively and really say, hey, this was good, this was bad, to think about ranges from an objective point of view. As soon as you say, hey, can you explain yourself, like why would you assign this range, or why would you make this action, or what frequency are you assuming your opponent's going to react with, everything becomes extremely subjective at that point. If you try to press them into, hey, make an objective statement on this play or on this thought process, they start wiggling out, and all of a sudden there's just like nothing. You're not having a real conversation, you're just watching someone completely wiggle through their thought process and not think objectively. And that is a huge, huge problem, and one of the things that's going to keep them from being winning players pretty much ever until they fix that issue. So if you're not sure if you're struggling with this right this moment, write down a hand that you recently played and objectively assign your range for every single step in the hand, assign an objective range for your opponent every step in the hand, and analyze your actions compared to the ranges and the frequencies you're assigning. If you can do that well and you don't find yourself like, I don't like this one, I'm just going to not do this street, that's usually a pretty good sign that you're not looking at things objectively. It doesn't matter if you play the hand really, really well or really, really poorly. If you can't objectively say this was good, this was bad, or hey, I'm going to try to actually figure out why the heck I did this, or I need to fix this thing because it's clearly not working out and it's clearly got some mushy thought process behind it. If you're unable to do that, that's going to be a real problem in the long run, and is something you should address much, much sooner than later. Number 3 is that losing players fail to think proactively through a spot. Winning poker players are like chess players or pool players. Everything is thinking multiple steps ahead, thinking about what's happening right this moment, as well as proactively what they're going to be doing in the future. And maybe it's not perfect and it's not completely refined to the decimal place, but there's a rough proactive plan forming. Whereas losing players are hyper reactive. They're not thinking a step ahead, they're just thinking what are they going to do right this exact moment. There is no forward thought process, and that's a problem in a game like poker. Now, in the beginning when you're first learning poker, it's obviously very, very difficult, if not impossible, to think very, very proactively. You just simply don't have enough information yet to be able to even think about, well, what could happen in the future. But as you start studying this game more and more, and you start making some of the things that used to be difficult more commonplace, such as choosing your preflop ranges or choosing a general c-bet size, as soon as those things start to become more automatic, it frees up brain capacity to be able to think multiple steps ahead and think, okay, well, what if my opponent does check raise here? Or what if I c-bet here, my opponent calls, what would be my future plan on, let's just say, 2 different types of turn cards? These are the kind of things that can start helping you think proactively, and a lot of this stuff is going to be off table valuable study doing this really proactive spidering that can really help you in real time be more prepared rather than playing purely reactive. Because when you're playing on your heels in this game, you're gonna get knocked down in the long run. If you're playing your toes, you're forward thinking, strike, that can work out much better, and it simply will work out much better. Look at the best players, they're thinking proactively 100%. Yes, they're gonna have to react to weird things that happen every now and then, but the overall game plan is very proactive in nature. Number 4 is that losing players tend to attribute all positive results to their genius play and all losses to the luck of their opponents. And let's be honest, this is why poker is still a lucrative game. This is why people continue to play poker in the first place, even though the average player is a losing player, because they're able to take all of the things that happen to go right, be it a winning session, a winning hand, winning a tournament, whatever, as this is due to me and my genius play regardless, and all losses can just get simply blamed on your opponent or luck or whatever variable that's out of your control entirely. And that is something that good players don't tend to do. But again, this wraps back to leak number 2, which is not thinking objectively, right? If you can objectively say, hey, I got my money in pretty darn badly here, I made a mistake, I misassigned a range, whatever it is, again, you're objectively stating these things, then you can say, hey, wins are on me for making better decisions than my opponent in this spot, or hey, if I lost this because I put my money in badly here, that's on me, that's objective, not I lost simply because my opponent is lucky, or I won this hand simply because I'm the best poker player that's ever lived. Rather, you have to think objectively about these things, and then you can discern whether a win or a loss in a hand, in a session, whatever, is likely based upon a good decision you made or a bad decision you made. That's going to be much more useful than just simply saying all wins are because I'm awesome and all losses are because you're a luck box. It's not really quite the way this works. And the 5th sign that I know you're a losing poker player is if you're strictly a field player and pretty much completely ignore the math. So anybody can claim to be a feel player. In fact, it's the easiest thing in the world to proclaim. Simply, I feel in this situation. I can just feel my way out. I got to feel on the reads. I got to tell on this dude. Everything's just feel. Again, noticing that we're breaking away from objectivity, because as soon as you say, oh, well, I felt he had this, or I felt they were going to do this, maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong, but objectively, how are you proofing any of this? So it's the easiest thing to not be able to pin you on, hey, your thought process kind of sucks here, because you can just always say, well, I felt, or oh, I'm updating my feel in this situation. There's no objectivity, and math in this game is extremely objective, and honestly, poker is a math game at the end of the day, and until someone is willing to admit that there is so much math underpinning this game, and they think everything is going to be tells and feel, that person has very little chance of being successful in this game. And in the long term, I'd say just about 0% chance of being successful. Now, in saying this, I don't mean to say that tells don't exist and that you can't get a feel in a situation that, something's off here. Maybe they're bluffing more often than they, quote, should be or normally do, and that you can't get those kind of feels. They really do exist. So I'm not saying that they're not there. But if you, at the same time, are going to say, I don't do pot odds, I don't do implied odds, I don't care about equity, I don't care about EV, everything is about my feels and tells, that's where it's a real problem. Your feeling, your intuition that comes in this game is going to be something that gets added to the overall objectivity and the math itself. So if you have a feel that your opponent is bluffing more often, then that's something that's objectively influencing their range or frequency, assuming of course your feel is correct, and as such it's an addition on top of the math. The feel does not replace the math. The feel is something that can update different variables within the math and the formula, but it's not going to be something that just completely bricks out math entirely. That's not how this works. And look, I get it, not everyone is a math savant and most people just simply don't like math, but at the end of the day, there's a tremendous amount of math in this game and it's not that complex. Once you actually wrap your head around the underlying formulas, you do some practice and reps with it, all of a sudden it starts to get much more automatic and much simpler at the end of the day. If you're interested in that, definitely make sure to check out my pre-FOP and math workbook. Just do a few pages per day and honestly it's going to get much quicker and more automatic in the long term, and that's going to be helpful in real time when you're trying to say, what should I do in this situation, when you're able to more quickly do things like calculate pot odds, or you're more quickly able to understand what is the break-even percentage of bluffing in this situation. That is going to inform your game massively and also again make you much more objective. Splitsuit.com/prefop to check it out today. Get your copy. Again, just do a few pages per day and it's massively going to help with this math problem that you may be having right this moment and get you away from claiming, nope, I'm just a field player, because again, just field players don't win in the long run. So those are 5 ways that I know that a player is almost certainly a losing poker player. But I'm curious what you find. What are some different ways that you're able to discern, and this person is almost certainly a losing poker player? Leave a comment down below and let me know. And just give me a thumbs up if you like this kind of format. If you want more videos like this, a thumbs up on the video would be massively, massively appreciated. And that's going to wrap it up for this one. Thank you so much for hanging out today, and I can't wait to read the comments and see what you think should also be added to this list. Again, I'll see you back shortly with a brand new video. In the meantime, good luck out there and happy grinding.